I'm ranting here, Wayne, because it's just over the top. Where do you want to start first? With what happened yesterday? I mean, it's just, it's like I'm a tennis player and they got a ball machine shooting balls every second here. I can't hit them all.
Yeah. You know, yesterday was very interesting to listen to FBI Director Comey. You know, the FBI never misses a chance to go after, quote unquote, Russian and Chinese hackers. I mean, they almost have a franchise on this. But yesterday I was listening to Comey very closely, and he did admit that Hillary Clinton's private servers, remember, we were told it was one server in Chappaqua. That was the other revelation. Comey said there were multiple servers, and some had been taken offline, and it was like trying to get all these emails together. It was like trying to put together a giant jigsaw puzzle. Now, if that doesn't show criminal intent, I don't know what does. But let's get back to this foreign intelligence agents. He said, we know that foreign intelligence agencies took advantage of the lack of security on Hillary Clinton's servers to penetrate and obtain classified information, which he included as sensitive compartment information.
And that's what you did at the NSA. You headed up a major division program trying to stop people leaking info. Isn't this a classic deal to put it on some server and claim you don't know it's penetrated? I mean, she knew. She's a famous spy, been CIA since college. She knew full well what she was doing.
Well, if she doesn't know, all the people around her certainly knew. And Sidney Blumenthal, who was working with her on these private servers to help bring down Gaddafi in Libya, and what a wonderful result we've seen there from that very poor decision. And the Benghazi stuff was all being transmitted by these private servers. But when I heard Comey say foreign intelligence agencies, he didn't refer to China and or Russia. That is always code because the Israelis are involved. You cannot be an FBI director or a career prosecutor in the Justice Department and even be thought that you're investigating Israel. And if you did look at it, you're certainly not going to mention, anything about Mossad. And then I heard the same guy, some a cybersecurity expert, on both Fox News and an interview with Politico. Neither one of them Fox is generally pro-Israel, as is, I believe, Politico. And this guy said that the countries involved, he said China, Russia, and Israel. And he said that on Fox News, and he said it in an interview with Politico. After hearing Comey and then hearing this guy who had apparently worked in security for Alcatel, Lucent, and Cisco Systems, he seemed to know what he was talking about.
So clearly it's being reported Israel was in there. Obviously, Israel's penetrated the U.S. more than anybody. And let's be clear, I don't hate Israel. It's different power blocks. But at the same time, Israel puts people in prison that admit they have a nuclear program that's been around 45 years. Yeah. It's not right. You're not allowed to come in here and get our secrets and, by the way, then sell them to China. Because Israel does that. They love to sell our stuff to China, but the FBI never complains about that.
Look, I've been to Israel 2 times, and every time I was over there, I had very good discussions with Israelis about how bad their government is, and it's worse now than it ever has been. Netanyahu is completely off the rails. He's now in Africa, kibitzing with 2 of the worst dictators in African history, Museveni of Uganda and Kagame of Rwanda. But,
exactly. By the way, we put it on screen where Politico is saying Israel. So this is unprecedented for them to even mention Israel or whatever factions controlling this. Let me ask you the bottom line from your sources. You're a smart guy. You don't like to speculate. What do you think Hillary was really doing? I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I've got a good instinct. Wasn't she really just selling data and putting it on the server?
I don't think she was selling it, but it was this, it's this pay-to-play thing that even her and her husband and Chelsea's Clinton Global Initiative, Clinton Foundation was involved with. See, there was this triangle between Hillary at State and this private company that Bill was involved with, and also Huma Abedin was involved with while she was a State Department employee, called Teneo up in New York, and then Bill Clinton's Clinton Foundation. This was like a big menage a trois, corporate menage a trois that was selling or trading. Let's use I don't know they were selling the stuff, but at least they were trading for services all this information. And the reason I believe she had the private servers in Chappaqua, the Clinton residence, was to evade not only the National Archives and Records Administration Act, which would make all those part of the record, but she was also trying to evade any leaks by people within State Department.
Sure. Wasn't she making her own compartmented State Department?
Yeah, it was her own. What she established was her own parallel communication system within the State Department. And remember what she said when...
if you did that at the NSA, wouldn't it be called espionage?
I'd still be in jail, and I wouldn't be seeing the light of day for the rest of my life. You know, Chelsea Manning, who now is reported to have tried to commit suicide today. And
let Chelsea Manning go. I mean, you cannot keep anybody in jail while Hillary goes free.
Well, he got 35 years before he had the sex change. But, 35 years, no wonder he tried to commit suicide. He got hammered because of the State Department cable leaks to WikiLeaks. He got 35 years in Leavenworth, and here Hillary Clinton gets a pass from the FBI. So no wonder the very next day...
Hey, she thinks she's a man, he thinks he's a woman. Let's put him in the same jail cell.
With respect to potential computer intrusion by hostile actors, we did not find direct evidence that Secretary Clinton's personal email domain, in its various configurations since 2009, was hacked successfully. But given the nature of the system and of the actors potentially involved, we assess we would be unlikely to see such direct evidence. We do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. We also assess that Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email domain was both known by a large number of people and readily apparent. She also used her personal email extensively while outside the United States, including sending and receiving work-related emails in the territory of sophisticated adversaries. Given that combination of factors, we assess it is possible that hostile actors gained access to Secretary Clinton's personal email.
It is possible the sun came up this morning and that water's wet. Look, the important point here is that he keeps saying that it's possible because obviously when somebody gets in there, they're not going to leave a trail. Ladies and gentlemen, it's in WikiLeaks. It's in the Russian leaks. It's everywhere, Hillary's emails. So we know that went on. We're going to go to break. This is a short segment. Come back and talk to Mel, Corey, and Caesar finally, and Margaret with our guests, and then Joe Biggs joins us from the border. But am I wrong? I mean, you ran security, did a lot of security stuff at the NSA. This is what you watched for. As a real expert on this, Wayne, what are we looking at?
Well, first of all, if he's talking about sophisticated hostile actors, and I would argue with Comey whether some of these countries are, hostile as they were during the Cold War. I mean, China's our largest trading partner. Russia, the reason they're doing anything opposed to us is because we've got them backed up against the wall with now NATO troops on the Baltic borders with Russia. So I don't blame them. But it's very clear that when you get sophisticated attacks, they're coming in and they're not leaving a trail. They're pulling. They're in. They take what they need and then they cover up the fact that they were there. I think maybe the NSA has the capability to detect that, but I think it would be even hard for them and the U.S. Cyber Command because every other country now is trying to see us and raise us in the area of cybersecurity, and don't count the Russians and Chinese, and certainly not the Israelis out on their sophistication of their cyber attacks.
Well, let's go further. Let's go further then. Yeah. Your gut, Hillary or Trump, who's going to win? Just first approximation. And then what happens under a Hillary administration?
Every time I hear about polls in certain states, and then we have this issue with this Trump sending out this tweet that he's being hammered on about the Hillary photograph and the Star of David. You know, 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. I think right now, it's going to be very hard for him to win the battleground states of Florida and Nevada and Virginia and North Carolina. Now, oddly enough, we're seeing a lot closer of a race in normal Democrat pickup states of Michigan and Ohio, which is a either or. It can go either way. It's a bellwether state.
Sure. How could she win in the Rust Belt when we've got 8 years of Obama screwing everybody, and then she's like running on his record?
Right. And Pennsylvania is in play. That's very interesting too, because that's always been a sure Democratic state in most of the last few elections.
What's your gut tell you, though? The establishment wants Hillary. I think there's going to be election fraud.
Look at all the neocons that are bolting for Hillary. These so-called Republicans, these chameleons. You know, they were LBJ Democrats, then they were Scoop Jackson Democrats, and when Jimmy Carter became president, they left the Democratic Party and they became Reagan Republicans. And then they got in with the Bush family, and now look what they're doing. They're going back to the Democrats under
That's
Hillary.
right. Anybody that supports Hillary ought to be ashamed of themselves. You couldn't be with a more rancid establishment whore.
Oh, absolutely. And look, the other thing, look at the series of events. We had this meeting on the Attorney General Lynch's private aircraft at Sky Harbor International in Phoenix in the private area of the airport. And Clinton says, I just wanted to go on and discuss my golf game and my grandkids. And Janet Reno, but
the FBI ordered the media to not film it. Well, very briefly, Wayne, I've got articles on the London Telegraph today with the top Silicon Valley people, all of them building armored redoubts, moving to the middle of nowhere, saying they think collapse is coming. They've set up a system where they collapse things to get control, but then it makes the money they've created worthless. It's like they can't help themselves because they have no goodwill towards people. They like screwing people over, but they screw themselves, corrupting the civilization that allowed them to even hatch. I don't understand it.
It's almost like the old syndico-anarchist political philosophy, which I believe George Soros practices every day. I mean, how he's now shorting the euro. He did the same thing after Brexit with the pound. He thrives on chaos.
They bet on every number and then just create chaos.
Yeah, and he finds profit can be made in chaos, and I see that all the time with the stuff that he gets his hands around. But I believe our election here is no different, because what we're seeing, look, all over the world we have political dysfunctionality taking place right now. You know, there's probably going to be a hung parliament in Australia. No party there got the majority to form the next government. Spain is in a similar situation. We have even the Germans now. Germany's talking about leaving the European Union. I mean, that is the engine for the EU, but we see parties there that are opposed.
What about the Islamic love affair with radical Islam? What's up with these German women getting raped, even ministers, and then covering it up?
I think it grows out of their World War II experience. They don't want to be seen as xenophobic.
So they hate themselves, so they ally with who their grandfathers allied with to come rape them.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the same thing in Sweden. And we have...
But they're allying with the people that sided with the Nazis, and they hate America. What's their problem?
Yeah, I think they're confused about their own history in some of these countries. I mean, we had this judge that sentenced this Syrian migrant to just like a few months in prison because he raped a boy in a swimming pool because he said he was, he hadn't had sex for a while. I mean, like, that's an excuse, but apparently the judge felt sorry for him. No wonder Austria, they now know that their presidential election was fixed, and the Austrian court has ruled that they have to have another election in October.
Sure, here's another article on that. German author banned from Facebook after sharing book on migrant crime, Infowars.com. I mean, where do they, it's crazy authoritarianism.
right? I think we're seeing the same thing happening in this country. I said from the very beginning, I thought Donald Trump was absolutely on message with this anti-political correctness nonsense. Do you know there's a state representative from Philadelphia and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who says she's opposed to the Confederate flag being used for Civil War reenactments. I mean, can you imagine how foolish and moronic that is?
Oh, she wants to ban symbols. She's a complete
I mean, what, she
moron.
want to use the Imperial Japanese War flag at Civil War reenactments?
That's like France banning Nazi memorabilia from even like being sold. Well, who cares? It's memorabilia. It happened. It's history. It's like if I have a Japanese sword from 500 years ago, which I don't. I can't afford one. They're awesome. It doesn't mean I support Imperial Japan or the Shoguns. I mean, it's the most crazy crap I've ever heard. I mean, if I can afford one, I have one of those SS daggers. They're awesome. Doesn't mean I like the SS. Let's go ahead and talk to some callers. Let's go to Costa Rica and talk to Mel. You're on the air with Wayne Madsen. Thanks for holding so long. In fact, I'm putting Mel on hold, getting his address. He's getting a free Hillary for Prison shirt. Go ahead, Mel.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Jones. Sicilian Mel here from Costa Rica. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Great. While we're all distracted with Hillary Clinton and we're all distracted with Mr. Trump, there is the Antichrist of the New World Order who just got elected in the Philippines that you guys need to pay very, very close attention to. I mean, this guy...
he says he's like the right-wing messiah, and he's SWAT-teaming everybody and killing hundreds of, quote, drug dealers. That guy?
Yeah, he just came on TV yesterday, and he said, he mentioned 5 names of 5-star generals, and he said, don't leave the country. You're going to be called in for questioning. They already know that they're guilty of sin. This guy is going to start hanging people in public squares. One of the reporters asked him, why don't you use the electric chair? He said, I don't want to waste any money on electricity. Okay?
No, I mean, I've seen this new kind of flamboyant type guy. What do you make of him, Wayne?
Oh, well, you know, his name is Duterte, and they call him Duterte Harry, like Dirty Harry. Look, the problem is that Obama has pledged U.S. military support to the Philippines in Obama's pivot to Asia, which is nothing more than his desire to take on China militarily. So Obama has this wonderful ally in this guy, Rodrigo Duterte, who you know, he just said the other day he's only been president for a week and a half or so, and he proudly proclaimed that he's extrajudicially killed 5 drug dealers.
I think it's like 30 now. He also said he will kill members of the press. He said, if I don't like you, I will kill you.
Oh, yeah. Journalists are under the gun there, too. And but look, this is Obama's new ally in his planned war.
Well, it's okay because Obama's liberal. Thank you, Mel. Let's go ahead and talk to Caesar in Mexico. Caesar, thanks for holding. Didn't even notice you're from Mexico. Apologize. I didn't get to you earlier. I'm going to send you a Hillary for President shirt or a Molon Lobby, whichever you choose. Give us your name and address. We'll send it to you, Caesar. Make sure you're getting these addresses, John. I'm sorry to throw that at you. That guy just hung up. Call back, caller. The last caller from down in Costa Rica. Caesar, go ahead.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Alex. I had a comment here. How we see. I've been working in the education system here for about 7 years now, 8 years, and one reason I think, you know, I strongly believe that why people don't do anything. You know, even though like what happened with Clinton yesterday, Hillary Clinton, where, you know, it's just crazy what's going on. And people, it seems that they're just sitting back and doing nothing. And one reason why I see this, we all see it. And one reason why is because, you know, the dumbing down of the population, even only here in Mexico, you know, it's happened all over the world. And one way I see it is that we have professional development events every year. And each year it seems like we are getting trained to apply activities in the classroom that are like game oriented. It's called gamification. It's a cool strategy, but at the same time, it makes like, and even young adults, like at the universitarian age, they're constantly asking in the class, teach your game, let's play a game. And it shows you how like their mentality is like.
This was admitted in the 60s. They don't want you in the real world. So they want you to do simulated competition games where you're never involved in the real world. It's kind of like the Romans with gladiator events and horse races to divert the public from what was really going on in the world. It's a distraction so that we sleep while they live. And they also try to make, you know, regular learning as boring as possible and never teach people how it really works. how the world really works, because then you might actually be effective. Everything is about teaching you not to be effective. And you try to tell folks that are obsessed with gamification that, hey, this is a system to control you. They get mad with a Pavlovian response like you're trying to destroy their world because their world is a fantasy world. I'm not against games, but there's so much real stuff in the world. Games are only trying to copy the real world. But here's the definition, since you mentioned it. We'll put it back on screen for TV viewers. It's the application of typical elements of gameplay, point scoring, competition with others, rules to play to other areas of activity, typically as an online marketing technique to encourage engagement with a product or service. So yes, this is what gamification is, and people are mad who live in like fantasy land. They're obsessed with their fantasy shows or their video games. And I'm like, hey, I get it. I like some fantasy shows, like some video games, but it can't be your world. And you can tell they get a glaze in their eyes. They're now intellectually in that fantasy world and see you as someone almost trying to wake them up on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. They want to go back to Wonderland, back to the Matrix. Great points. Thank you, Caesar. Or hold on for one more comment. Wayne Madsen, your comment on that.
Well, you know, I think I talk to people who are educators, and it's awful now in some of these school systems. They don't even teach in some of these school systems cursive handwriting, you know, because everybody's getting so used to the, you know, texting and the keyboards and all the digital stuff. You know, it's the same complaint I have about Kindle. Look, you know, I've got a lot of real books, and I'm going to keep my real books. I'm not going to put any of my books, if I can help it, on
And it's
Kindle.
not that you're afraid of something new. They admit the screens hurt your eyes. It can digitally be changed.
Right.
The book is physical. It's very important to have physical copies.
Right, and Kindle, any book that's electronic can be altered.
They've already been doing it.
Just like I believe the 28 missing pages are the still classified pages. When John Brennan, the CIA director, said, oh, there's nothing in there that implicates Saudi Arabia and 9/11. The only reason he would say that after others have come out and said, of course it implicates Saudi Arabia, is that he's gone in and altered.
Well, he said a week after he said he might release it, he said a redacted version.
Yeah, he's altered it. If he says there's nothing in there that implicates Saudi Arabia.
We have all these senators, all these House members have seen it. It's in there. He says it's not there. You're right.
Right. And that can be done with Charles Dickens novels, Herman Melville's novels, the Bible, you name it, whatever it is.
You haven't heard? They're already re-releasing classics now, politically correct style.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Well, we already had
They don't want Tom Sawyer saying it's racist.
Right. The state representative from West
Mark Twain was anti-racist, but he put the stuff that was going on in the book. It's not racist to historically show something in a novel.
Well, I guess a state representative from Philadelphia, she wants to remove all references to the Confederacy. If she wants to remove the Confederate flag from reenactments, of course she represents. I got to point out that she represents an area, West Philadelphia, where kids graduating from high school there excel in only carjackings and shoplifting.
That's incredible. Well, those that control history control the past and the present and the future. Wayne Madsen, WayneMadsenReport.com. Look forward to seeing you about a week and a half up there to cover the RNC and the DNC, my friend. Thank you so much.